The rain hammered against the vast glass windows of the Sterling and Gates consulting boardroom. The skyline of Manhattan blurred behind the reflection of Ava Riley. Her face was pale, her lips trembling, a woman trying to breathe through devastation. Her husband, Ethan Herrera, sat across the table. Dressed in a devastating charcoal suit, he tapped a Mont Blanc pen against the divorce papers like a metronome of cruelty. His lawyer smirked smugly. Beside him sat a young PR executive, the woman everyone whispered about. She was reapplying her lipstick using her iPhone screen. "Sign, Ava," Ethan said coldly. "Let's end this farce." Ava's hands shook as she reached for the pen. 7 months pregnant, she tried to hide her tremor under the silk sleeves of her dress. The expensive perfume of his mistress burned her throat. She looked at her name printed in black ink. Ava Riley Herrera. The name she once believed would last forever. The room went silent. The words cut her chest like glass. The lawyer coughed, trying to hide a malicious smile. Ava held back tears, feeling the baby kick, as if the child could sense her pain. She signed. Each stroke of the ink felt like she was burying her former life. Ethan pushed the papers aside. He looked at his mistress and whispered something that made her laugh. Ava rose from the chair, clinging to her belly, and whispered, "You'll regret this." Ethan's hard smile deepened. Outside, flashes erupted. Paparazzi captured the moment she stepped out, drenched by the rain, tears mixing with mascara. New York watched, hungry for scandal. She tried to hail her car, but her phone buzzed with a message from the bank. "Your account has been suspended." Her breath hitched. Ethan had frozen her finances. She stumbled toward the curb, shaking, lost among yellow cabs and umbrellas. The city felt enormous, ruthless. She pressed her palm against her stomach and whispered, "It's just you and me now." Lightning crossed the horizon. Suddenly, a woman rushed toward her. Carla Vance, her old friend and lawyer. "Ava, don't pass out. Someone's been trying to reach you all morning," Carla shouted, holding her steady. "Who?" Ava asked weakly. Carla pulled a soaked envelope from her purse. "A man named Mr. Edward Salas. Says he's the executor of your mother's estate. He needs to see you today before midnight." Ava blinked. "Good into it. My mother's estate?" Carla nodded, eyes wide. "He said it's urgent. Something about a will and a trust in your name." The rain fell harder, drowning the city noise. Ava looked at the envelope trembling in her hand. For the first time all day, a glimmer of hope cut through the storm. But as a black Mercedes sedan pulled up nearby, a man inside took a photo of her and made a call. She signed it. Proceed to phase 2. The next morning, Manhattan seemed washed clean. Sunlight poured over the Upper East Side, glinting off the windows of Dior and the glass towers. But Ava Riley sat in Carla's small downtown law office, eyes swollen, clutching that damp envelope like it was her last lifeline. Carla put 2 mugs of Starbucks coffee down. "Drink this. You look like you haven't slept in days." Ava tried to smile. "I haven't. Every time I close my eyes, I see his face when I signed those papers." Carla sighed. "Ethan's a shark. But if this Mr. Edward Salas is who he says he is, maybe you finally have something he can't take." With trembling fingers, Ava opened the envelope. Inside was a single letter, engraved with gold initials. R. Trust. Confidential. Her heart raced as she read. "Ms. Riley, as executor of your late mother's estate, I must inform you that the conditions of your inheritance activate on your 30th birthday. However, early release may be granted under specific circumstances. One of those has just occurred." Carla's eyes widened. "Ava, this could be huge." Ava looked up. "But my mother died when I was 15. I thought she had nothing left." Carla leaned in. "Your mother was part of the Riley family trust, right? That's old New York money. Maybe she hid it to protect you." Before Ava could reply, Carla's landline rang. Carla Vance, attorney, she said, then frowned. Yes, she's here. Who's calling? Her voice softened. Mr. Salas, one moment. Carla hit the speakerphone. A deep, composed male voice filled the room. Ms. Riley, I am Mr. Edward Salas. I manage the Riley estate. You are the sole surviving heir. Ava froze. I can't be. It is more than correct, Salas said. But listen closely. The trust can only be transferred if you demonstrate you are financially and emotionally capable of an independent life. That means no spousal dependency, no sharing assets, and no psychological instability that could endanger the heirs. Carla frowned. Heirs? You mean her children? Correct, Salas replied. If Ms. Riley can demonstrate complete guardianship and mental stability within a 12-month window, the trust will activate for over $50 million in diversified assets. Ava almost dropped the phone. $50 million? But before she could breathe, Salas added, Ms. Riley, there is someone else who already knows. I received an anonymous inquiry this morning regarding your eligibility. My system was breached. Carla's jaw tightened, cold. Ava's heart hammered. Ethan must have seen the letter. He'll try to prove I'm unstable, maybe even unfit to be a mother. Salas's tone turned somber. Then you must remain in the shadows. The trust observers are watching. If you are seen as volatile, the board could freeze your claim. A thick silence hung over them. Ava looked at Carla, fear twisting in her stomach. So if I break down, cry, or even get angry publicly, I could lose everything. Precisely, Salas said. You must demonstrate strength. And one more thing. You will need a professional evaluation of your well-being. I can recommend someone discreet. Carla scribbled notes. We've got this handled. You just need time and space. But before Salas hung up, his tone softened. Ms. Riley, your mother believed you would rise when everyone expected you to fall. Don't let them be right about you. The line went dead. Ava looked out the window. Yellow cabs slid past the windows of Dior and Cartier. The world kept moving as if nothing had changed. Yet everything had. Carla touched her shoulder. We fight smart, Ava. But first we have to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere no one can find you. Outside, across the street, a man in a gray coat lowered his phone camera and walked away, murmuring into his earpiece. Phase 2 confirmed. Send it to Ethan. And just like that, Ava realized she hadn't escaped. The game had just begun. As dusk settled over New York, the city became a river of lights. Carla drove her black S-Class Mercedes down the FDR Drive, looking at Ava through the rain-streaked windshield. Ava sat silently, one hand cradling her belly, the other clutching a crumpled tissue. You need rest, Ava, Carla said quietly. We'll go to my apartment tonight. It's safer. Ava nodded, gazing out the window. The bright Cartier sign reflected in the glass, reminding her of Ethan's promises. The diamond bracelet he once gave her for being patient. Now, that same bracelet was pawned at a downtown store to pay for her medical bills. Her phone buzzed. A new message flashed. Think you can hide? You're unfit to raise my child. Her chest squeezed. Carla, he knows. Carla's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. Ignore him. He's trying to get you to lose your nerve. You heard what Salas said. They're watching. You can't show weakness. Ava pressed her hand against her stomach. I'm trying. But she suddenly gasped. Carla! The baby. The car screeched as Carla slammed on the brakes. Ava! Ava doubled over. A stabbing pain shot through her abdomen. What's wrong? My belly. Oh, God. Carla's instincts kicked in. She pulled over to the shoulder, flicked on the emergency lights, and dialed 911. Pregnant woman. 30 weeks. Severe pain. Possible premature labor. FDR Drive and 58th. Fast. The rain fell harder, muffling her voice. Within minutes, the wail of an ambulance sliced through the storm. Paramedics rushed in, hoisting Ava onto a gurney. Her vision blurred with pain and light. Carla climbed in beside her, gripping her hand. As the ambulance sped through the streets, Ava whispered, "Carla, if anything happens, promise me you'll protect them." "Don't you dare talk like that," Carla said fiercely. "You're going to be fine." Ava's phone vibrated again. A new message. "Maybe the world would be better off without you." Carla's face contorted. That psychopath is a strain. But before she could finish, a tearing squeal ripped the air. The ambulance gave a violent lurch as another car swerved into its path. Metal shrieked against metal. Ava was thrown sideways. Carla slammed her shoulder against the wall. The sirens died mid-wail. Smoke, glass, splinters. When Ava opened her eyes, she was upside down, still strapped in. The paramedic groaned next to her, unconscious. Carla's voice came faintly from somewhere outside. "Help! Someone! Please, help us!" Through the shattered door, Ava saw a man standing in the rain, black hood up, face obscured. He stared at her before disappearing into the alley. Moments later, another car skidded to a stop. A tall man in a dark overcoat jumped out, shouting at the arriving EMTs. His voice was calm, authoritative. "Get the gurney. Move her carefully. She's pregnant." Ava tried to focus. The man leaned in. His eyes, gray and steady, met hers. "You're going to be fine. I've got you." Her vision faded as she heard Carla say, "That's Richard Stone, the billionaire investor. He was right behind us. He saw everything." Richard's voice was the last thing she heard before losing consciousness. She's not going to die tonight. But as she passed out, the paramedics discovered the ambulance's brake line, neatly cut. This was no accident. It was a warning. The next thing Ava felt was the blinding white light of the emergency room and the accelerated sound of her own heart monitor. The antiseptic smell burned her throat. She tried to move, but pain tore through her abdomen. Someone gently pressed her shoulders. "Easy, Mrs. Riley," a nurse said. "You were in an accident. You're at New York Presbyterian Hospital. You need to stay calm for the babies. Babies." The word echoed in her haze. "The babies?" she whispered. Carla appeared beside her, one arm in a sling, eyes red, but alive. "They're trying to keep them inside a few more weeks. Ava, just breathe." But the doctor's expression above his mask was grim. "We can't wait. She has placental abruption. Prep for an emergency C-section." The room erupted into motion. Nurses wheeling trays, lights flashing, a monitor beeping like a survival alarm clock. Carla squeezed Ava's hand. "I'll be right here, okay? You're not alone." Ava nodded weakly, her voice trembling. "If they're early, will they make it?" The doctor didn't answer. Moments later, she was wheeled into the operating room, surrounded by sterile walls and humming neon lights. The anesthesiologist leaned over her. "Take a deep breath, Mrs. Herrera." "No, Herrera," she whispered, her eyes fluttering. "Riley." A faint smile flickered under his mask. "Riley, then. You're safe now." Through the fog of pain and medication, Ava heard the doctor's voice. "First one crowning. Ready. Push." A tiny cry tore the air. Then another. Then one more. 3 cries, overlapping, ragged, but alive. The sound filled the sterile room with something bigger than hope. The nurses murmured, "Triplets! All breathing!" Ava sobbed in relief. "My babies are alive." One of the doctors addressed someone at the door. "We'll need immediate NICU support." That's when she saw him. Richard Stone. The man from the crash. His tailored overcoat was soaked from the rain. His gray eyes were fixed on her with concern. "I'm not family," he told the nurse, "but I am covering all her medical costs. Ensure she receives the best care this hospital can offer." The nurse hesitated. "Sir, that's—" "I said all costs," Richard repeated, his tone calm but absolute. As Ava drifted in and out of consciousness, she watched him hand a sleek black card to the staff. Then his gaze softened as he looked at her. "You're safe now, Miss Riley. You made it." When she woke up, hours later, the storm had passed. The city outside glowed silver under the skyline. Carla was asleep in the corner chair next to Ava's bed. Richard was looking through the glass of the neonatal unit, where 3 tiny incubators glowed under pale blue lights. "They're so small," she whispered. Richard turned. Small, but strong, like their mother. Her eyes welled with tears. "Thank you for saving us," he shrugged lightly. "You would have done the same for someone else." Then his tone turned serious. "But Ava, that ambulance, the brakes were cut. The police found clear evidence of tampering." Her breath hitched. "You mean?" He nodded. "Someone wanted to make sure you never arrived at this hospital alive." A heavy electric silence spread between them. The hum of the incubators was the only sound. Ava's hand trembled as she reached toward the glass, separating her from her children. "Then whoever they are," she said quietly, "they just failed. Period." But outside, in that same hospital, a man in a black hood watched through the rain and whispered into his phone. "She survived. Begin phase 3. 3 weeks after the accident, snow covered New York like silence itself. Ava sat by the hospital window, her body still weak, staring at the city lights twinkling beyond the glass. Her triplets, Ava, Leo, and Noah, their names adapted, slept in the neonatal ward, tiny but growing stronger every day. She touched the beaded bracelet around her wrist that held their names. Carla walked in, her sling gone, holding a sleek folder. "Ready for this?" Ava sighed. "If it's another hospital bill?" "No." Carla smiled faintly. "It's the meeting Mr. Salas scheduled. He's coming here with the trust administrator." "Trust administrator?" "Yes," Carla said. "Apparently the inheritance isn't as simple as cashing a check. It's tied to a corporate trust, Riley Holdings." Before Ava could absorb it, the door opened. Mr. Edward Salas walked in. Gray hair, tailored navy coat. The posture of a man who had carried secrets for too long. Behind him was another man. Tall, immaculate suit. Familiar gray eyes. "Richard." "Mr. Stone." Ava blinked. "What are you doing?" Salas smiled courteously. "Ah, I see you've met. Mr. Stone is not only the man who saved you, he is also one of your mother's estate trustees." The air stood still. Ava's fingers tightened on the blanket. "You're what?" Richard looked uneasy. "I didn't tell you because the timing wasn't right. I was appointed years ago to oversee certain trust conditions. Your mother chose me when I worked with her foundation. She said if anything ever happened to her, she wanted someone who understood integrity, not greed." Salas placed the folder on Ava's lap. "Your mother, Margaret Riley, left you controlling shares in Riley Holdings, several properties on the Upper East Side, and a long-term investment fund valued at approximately $50 million. Ava held her breath. "That's impossible. She lived so modestly." "She hid it," Salas said quietly. "She wanted you to grow up with humility. The inheritance activates only if you live with independence and moral clarity, qualities your mother admired," Richard added. "She designed this to protect you. But Ava, there's something you must know." Salas cleared his throat. "The board has reviewed the recent press. They are concerned. Photos of you leaving the courthouse crying. Stories about instability. That could jeopardize your qualification." Carla frowned. "That's unfair. She went through trauma." "It is the condition," Salas said. "Public perception matters. Until you demonstrate full stability and guardianship, the assets remain locked." Ava looked out at the skyline, fury mixing with pain. "So the man who humiliated me can now cost me my mother's legacy?" Richard's voice was soft. "Not if you stay calm and strategic. Let him think you're broken while you rebuild in silence." Carla leaned in. "We'll set up a containment plan. I'll manage the legal paperwork under protection. Richard can handle the trust relations." Ava hesitated. Then she nodded slowly. "All right. But if this trust is my mother's last wish, I won't let Ethan destroy it too. Salas smiled. Good. Because Ms. Riley, you have more allies than you know. Before leaving, Richard handed her a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate silver pendant, engraved with a single word, courage. She bought this for you before she passed, Richard said. She was supposed to give it to you when you were ready. Ava's eyes filled with tears. I don't feel ready for anything. You don't have to be, Richard replied. You just have to start. Period. But as they left, Salas received an encrypted email on his phone. Ethan Herrera had filed a court motion claiming Ava's mental instability endangered the triplets. The war had officially begun. Winter slowly melted into a pale, soft spring. 3 months post-hospital, Ava found herself standing on the porch of a cedar villa on the California coast, one of the smaller properties in her mother's estate. Waves crashed softly beyond the dunes, the air thick with the scent of salt and pine. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was silence. Inside, the villa was nothing like her old life with Ethan. No marble floors, no sterile perfection. Just wooden beams, pale linen curtains, and a crackling fireplace next to a rocking chair where 3 bassinets lined up. Ava, Leo, and Noah slept soundly, each in a knitted hat Carla had commissioned. Carla, looking gorgeous while unpacking groceries, smiled. I stocked you up. Diapers, formula, wipes, and decaf coffee. I know how you like it. Ava managed a smile. You shouldn't have done all this. Are you kidding? Watching you resurface is my favorite revenge. They chuckled softly. It felt almost normal. But as Carla left that afternoon, Ava noticed a black SUV parked near the dunes. It remained there for almost an hour. Tomorrow. That night, when the babies finally slept, Ava curled up on the sofa with her Kindle, going over a book on habits. She underlined a quote, "Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become." She whispered it to herself. She was voting to be strong. The days bled into weeks. Each dawn brought a new rhythm. Feeding, burping, journaling. She recorded every detail. Ava's tiny laugh, Leo's stubborn kicks, Noah's quiet curiosity. Healing came in small doses, like the tide reclaiming sand. Richard visited every few days, bringing supplies and advice. One evening, he arrived with a Mont Blanc folder and a gentle smile. The trust audit is complete, he said. You are officially cleared for independent management. Ava's eyes widened. You mean I can start making decisions? He nodded. Within limits. You can control the public-facing projects of Riley Holdings. It will prove your capacity. Ava hesitated. Ethan won't stop, will he? Richard's expression darkened. He's filing more motions, claiming you are emotionally unfit, and have fabricated the inheritance. She felt her chest tighten. Fabricated? How low can he go? Lower than you can imagine, Richard said quietly. But you have something he never will. Public sympathy. They stood outside watching the sunset that evening. The sky burned with pink and gold, reflecting in the glass of Richard's Mercedes. He looked at her, the wind lifting her hair. You remind me of my wife, he said quietly. Not because you look like her, but because you refuse to break. Ava looked down, her throat tight. She must have been lucky. No, he said. I was... Their eyes met, pausing just long enough for something unspoken to be felt. It wasn't romance yet, but recognition. 2 souls marked by loss. Later that night, as the house slept, Ava sat by the window with her laptop, drafting plans to reopen her mother's charitable foundation. Her reflection in the glass looked calmer, wiser, reborn. But then the light flickered. Once, twice, the power went out. She froze, her heart hammering. From outside came a faint engine drone. Through the curtain, she saw headlights. The same black SUV parked by the dunes. A shadow stepped out, walking toward the house. She grabbed her phone, whispering, "Carla, there's someone outside." The call wouldn't connect. No signal. Only the wind and her pounding heart. And as she reached for the closest thing, a baby monitor, a red light flashed on the device that hadn't been there before. Someone was already watching her from the inside. The morning after the power outage, Ava woke up to the faint cries of her babies and the smell of salt in the air. The electricity had returned, but the memory of that shadow outside hadn't left her. Every creak of the old villa set her on edge. When Carla arrived with groceries, Ava's nerves were shot. "There was someone out there last night," Ava said, pacing. "I saw headlights near the dunes again." Carla frowned. "I'll call local security. You're not supposed to be out here alone, Ava." "I can't leave now," Ava said, cradling baby Noah. "If I run every time I feel scared, Ethan wins." Before Carla could respond, a deep voice came from the threshold. "You don't have to run." They turned to see Richard Stone standing there, wearing a wool overcoat, snow melting off his shoulders. "The SUV you saw, it was mine. I was checking on the property after I got a strange call from Salas. Someone tried to access your trust files again." Carla sagged in relief. "You scared us to death, Richard." He smiled faintly. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to call in case your phone was compromised." Ava looked up. "Compromised?" Richard nodded, pulling a thin laptop from his briefcase. "Your baby monitor was transmitting through an external IP. Someone planted a signal inside." "It's not random." Ava felt sick. "Someone was watching my babies?" "Yes," Richard said quietly. "But they weren't just trying to scare you. They wanted to gather evidence, perhaps to frame you as paranoid or unstable. It's a psychological game." Carla's jaw tightened. "Ethan's team again." Richard's tone hardened. "Then we fight smarter. I have a friend, a cybersecurity expert, ex-federal agent. He can trace the source of this signal. Until then, you're under my security coverage." Ava blinked. "Richard, I can't let you do that. You've done enough already." "You didn't ask me," he replied. "I'm doing it because I can't watch him destroy another good person." The words hung heavy between them. For a moment, neither spoke. Outside, the ocean roared, waves crashing like distant thunder. Later that day, Richard's friend, a wiry man named Nick, arrived with equipment. He moved through the house silently, scanning every device. "The signal was coming from a satellite router hidden beneath the baby's floorboard," he said. "It's sophisticated. Someone professional set this up." Ava sat down heavily. "Professional? How?" Nick met her eyes. "Like corporate surveillance, not paparazzi. Someone with money," Carla muttered. "Ethan Herrera's money." Richard exhaled slowly. "We'll file a report, but first we cut them off." That night, Richard installed a new encrypted network. Ava watched him work by the flickering fireplace. His focus, his calm, his quiet presence. It all felt disarmingly safe. "Why are you helping me, really?" she finally asked. He looked up, the firelight softening his face. "Because I've been where you are. I lost everything once. My wife, my peace. Someone lied, and the world believed it. No one deserves to drown alone." She swallowed hard. "Thank you." He smiled slightly. "Don't thank me yet. This isn't over." The sound of the wind filled the space between them. The baby stirred, soft sighs filling the warm air. For the first time in months, Ava felt something she hadn't dared to feel. Trust. Hours later, long after Richard had left, Ava stood by the window holding Noah. The stars over the California coast shone faintly. Then, across the dunes, she saw a small light flash twice, like a coded signal. Her blood ran cold. "Richard, please tell me that's you," she whispered. But miles away in New York, Ethan smiled at his phone screen as a live feed reconnected. Her villa was visible once more through a new, hidden camera. Phase 4 had just begun. By early summer, the California coast shimmered under the sun. The sea breeze brought a quiet promise of renewal. But Ava Riley no longer trusted the calm. She had spent weeks rebuilding firewalls around her devices, legal walls around her children. The fear hadn't vanished, but it had morphed into something sharper. Resolve. That morning, Richard arrived with a navy blue folder under his arm. "You have your clearance," he said, placing it on the wooden table. "The trust board approved your provisional management rights for Riley Holdings. It's time to take back your name." Ava blinked. "You mean I can run part of the company?" He nodded. "Not all of it yet, but you'll oversee community projects and public relations. It will prove your stability to the board and the world." Carla, joining by video call, cheered. "This is your comeback arc, girl. Let's make it cinematic." Ava smiled for the first time in days. "Where do I start?" Richard leaned in. "We'll set up a downtown office space. My firm can lend you staff until you hire your own. Just stay visible, serene, professional. Let Ethan underestimate you." 3 days later, Ava walked through the revolving doors of a Manhattan skyscraper, dressed in a cream suit and low heels. The lobby gleamed with marble and light. It wasn't just a building. It was her mother's legacy reclaimed. She took the elevator to the 32nd floor, her heart racing as the doors opened to a glass-walled office with sweeping views of the city. A young assistant handed her a Mont Blanc pen. "Ms. Riley, the contracts for the downtown renovation are ready for your signature." Ms. Riley. The name felt powerful again. She signed, steady and sure. At midday, Richard stopped by to check on her progress. "How does it feel?" She smiled faintly. "Like breathing after being underwater for too long." They spent the afternoon reviewing proposals, heads bent over spreadsheets glowing on MacBook screens. Outside, the skyline stretched endless and bright. But just as Ava started to believe things were turning, Carla's call came in, her voice tight. "We have a problem. Ethan filed for joint custody and has petitioned the court to assess your mental fitness. He's claiming you have delusions, that you orchestrated the surveillance." Ava's pulse spiked. "He's insane. We have proof." "Proof doesn't matter if public opinion shifts," Carla cut in. "He's hired a PR firm. They're already feeding gossip blog stories about your emotional breakdowns." Richard's jaw tightened. "Then we counter with more intelligence. Facts, not outrage." He turned to Marissa. "Set up a media space, a live interview, national network. No tabloids, no gossip." Ava blinked. "You want me to go on television?" "Yes," Richard said firmly. "Tell your story, not through lawyers, through your own voice. You've been hiding, letting him define you. It's time to take back the narrative." No. The idea terrified her. But the next day, she stood under the studio lights, her heart racing, as makeup artists powdered her trembling hands. The producer whispered, "We're live in 60 seconds. Facing her was the anchor of Good Morning America, a show watched by millions. The anchor smiled sympathetically. "Ava, thank you for being brave enough to come on today. America has heard many stories about you. Some cruel, some unbelievable. What is the truth?" Ava took a breath. "The truth is, I'm not perfect. I cried when I signed those divorce papers. I broke down when I thought I was losing my babies. But weakness isn't madness. It's humanity." The anchor leaned in. "And what about your relationship with Richard Stone?" Ava looked directly into the camera. "He saved my life, literally. But he is not my story. My story is survival. My story is 3 babies born too soon who taught me what strength really is." The studio was silent. Even the crew paused. Ava continued, her voice steady now. "If people want to call me unstable because I refuse to let my ex-husband destroy me, so be it. But the only label I care about is mother." Applause broke out in the studio. The segment aired that evening and exploded online. The hashtag #Justice for Ava trended within hours. Influencers, mothers, and even journalists rallied to her cause. Back in her office that night, Carla burst in, breathless. "You did it. The tide is turning. Even the court is reconsidering the custody review." Ava smiled faintly, tears in her eyes. Maybe truth still matters. But just as hope blossomed, Marissa rushed in. Her face was pale. "We have a problem." She dropped a tablet showing leaked documents sealed as confidential. "This just went public. It shows large fund transfers from Riley Holdings to Richard's firm, dated last month." Ava's heart plummeted. "Those were for the foundation's security upgrades." "I know," Richard said gravely. "But out of context, it looks like fraud." Ethan just shared it on his verified account with the caption, "She's stealing from her mother's trust to pay her lover." Carla swore under her breath. "He's framing you again." Ava stared at the bright screen. All that progress, all that truth. It was about to crumble under one more lie. And somewhere across Manhattan, Ethan Herrera raised a glass of whiskey, watching the replay of her live interview on his phone. "Good speech, darling," he muttered. "Let's see how much the world loves you tomorrow." Autumn stretched over New York with sharp winds and golden leaves swirling down Broadway. After months of chaos, Ava Riley was invited to the annual Children of Tomorrow charity gala, the very event Ethan and his mistress Sonia were co-chairing this year. The irony was lost on no one. Carla slapped the invitation down on Ava's desk. "This is bait." "I know," Ava said calmly, turning the card over. "But it's also a stage. If I stay silent, I'm the ghost in his story. If I show up, I'm the headline." Richard crossed his arms. "You understand what you're walking into? He'll try to humiliate you publicly." Ava looked up. Her eyes were no longer soft. They were steady. "Then I'll let him try." That night, the Ritz-Carlton glittered like liquid gold beneath crystal chandeliers. Paparazzi lined the red carpet. Guests in Dior and Versace swept past camera flashes. And then, a silence. Ava arrived. She wore a simple off-white gown. No diamonds, no glitter, just grace. Her hair was pulled back, her makeup subtle. Her presence was radiant. Every lens turned to her. "Ms. Riley, is it true you stole funds?" a reporter shouted. Ava smiled gently. The truth has survived worse lies already. Inside, the ballroom was a sea of champagne flutes and whispers. Ethan stood near the main stage, tuxedo immaculate, Sonia clinging to his arm like an accessory. When he saw Ava, his smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "Well," he said. She approached. "Didn't expect you to show your face here, darling." She held his gaze, killed out. "You underestimate me still." Sonia cut in, her voice sweet and poisonous. "Careful, Ethan. She might live stream this and have another cry." Ava smiled faintly. "Oh, Sonia, don't worry. I'm saving my tears for people with souls." Richard appeared at her side, offering his arm. The energy in the room shifted. Photographers fired like wildfire. "Shall we?" he asked. Ethan's jaw tightened. "You think parading another man makes you innocent?" Richard's tone was quiet, but sharp. "No, but it makes her untouchable." The band began to play. As Ava stepped onto the dance floor with Richard, the crowd parted. Cameras captured her every move. Elegance wrapped in defiance. Midway through the evening, the host took the microphone. "Tonight, we honor those who rebuild hope for children in need. Ms. Ava Riley, would you do us the honor of presenting the keynote address?" Ethan's smile returned. "Oh, this will be good." Ava walked to the podium under a spotlight. The ballroom went silent. "When I began to rebuild the Riley Foundation," she began, "people said I was unfit, too emotional, too broken. But perhaps broken people understand need better than anyone. Tonight, I'm not here to prove my worth. I'm here to honor those who never gave up, even when the world called them unworthy. Applause swept the room. Ethan's expression hardened. Then, as if fate had timed it, Carla appeared near the back, phone in hand, whispering urgently to Richard. She had just received something in an email from an anonymous sender. A file. Richard scanned it and froze. He leaned into Ava as she stepped down from the podium. "We have it," he whispered. "What?" She exhaled. "The wire transfers Ethan used to frame you, traced back to his own offshore account. He sent them." Her eyes widened. "Are you sure?" Carla nodded from across the room. "Positive. We have digital proof." Ava straightened, her heart hammering. The night had just changed. Ethan, oblivious, raised his glass to her mockingly. "To second chances, darling," he smiled coldly. "To your last one." And as the cameras flashed, Ava knew this wasn't just a gala. It was her battlefield. Tomorrow, the same headlines that crucified her would bury him. The gala should have ended in triumph. Ava's speech had moved donors to tears, and Richard's whisper, "We have it," rang out like a promise of justice. But fate, cruel and theatrical, wasn't done testing her. As the dinner service began, Ethan Herrera took the stage uninvited. His tuxedo gleamed under the chandeliers. Confidence dripped from every word. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, microphone in hand. "Before we celebrate the evening, I'd like to correct a small misunderstanding about the woman we just applauded." The crowd stilled. Ava froze mid-step. Ethan smirked like a politician. "Many of you have read the articles. You've seen the evidence. Large sums of money missing from her mother's foundation, funneled directly into Mr. Richard Stone's firm. A very modern love story, wouldn't you agree? Tragic, scandalous, and profitable." A wave of murmurs swept the ballroom. Cameras flashed. Sonia, radiant with smugness, watched from their table, swirling her champagne. Ava felt the air leave her lungs. Richard rose instantly. "Sit down, Ethan. You've said enough." Ethan sneered. "Don't play the hero, Richard. We both know this woman has been manipulating you and the system since day one. Look at her. Perfect lighting. Perfect tears. A fraud born for sympathy." The audience watched, riveted by the cruelty. Ava stepped forward. Her voice, soft but steady, cut through the noise. "You're right, Ethan. I cried. I cried when you called our unborn child a mistake. I cried when you froze my accounts and left me with nothing. But tonight," she lifted her chin, "I'm done crying over you." Gasps floated through the crowd. Ethan opened his mouth, but she continued, stronger now. "You talk about love stories. Here is the truth. You didn't lose me because I was weak. You lost me because I finally saw what strength looked like." The room erupted in applause. Even some of Ethan's business partners turned away, uncomfortable. But Ethan wasn't done. "Touching speech, Ava," he scoffed. "Almost makes people forget your mother's trust financed that penthouse you're hiding in." Richard stepped closer. "That penthouse was legally transferred under the Riley estate." "Sure," Ethan cut in. "Perhaps she seduced the administrator too." The words rang like thunder. The audience gasped. Cameras zoomed in on Ava's face. Her composure flickered, but only for a beat. Richard's fists clenched, but she touched his arm. "No," she said quietly. "He won't drag me into the mud." She turned toward Ethan, her voice calm, almost compassionate. "You keep using my pain as entertainment, Ethan. But the difference between you and me? I heal. You perform." For a moment, the silence held heavy. Then the host, sweating and flustered, took the microphone. "Thank you, Mr. Herrera, but we'll return to our scheduled program." Ethan's smile wavered. The applause that followed was not for him. It was for her. Carla approached, phone in hand, whispering urgently. "Ava, the data. Mr. Salas and I traced the transfers. It's done. Tomorrow morning, the press will know everything." Ava exhaled shakily. Then tonight he can have his moment. As she walked out of the ballroom, the flashes followed her, but this time not with mockery. Reporters shouted her name. The voice is different now, almost reverent. Outside, the cool air bit her cheeks. Richard caught up to her on the steps of the Ritz. "You handled that like royalty," he said quietly. She smiled faintly. "No, like a woman who's finally finished bleeding." But upstairs, as Ethan poured himself another drink, his phone buzzed with an encrypted message. "The files are compromised. She has everything." The glass slipped from his hand, shattering like the empire he believed would never fall. The morning after the gala, New York was abuzz with rumors. Every news outlet replayed Ethan's humiliation. Every talk show dissected Ava's quiet defiance. But while the world speculated, Ava and Carla were already 2 steps ahead, knee-deep in evidence inside Carla's office on Park Avenue. Stacks of printed emails, wire transfers, and internal memos covered the oak table. The city's hum barely reached them. Richard sat across from them, sleeves rolled up, scrolling through a laptop screen, thick with digital documents. "He built a maze of shell companies," Carla murmured. "Cayman Islands, Zurich, even Singapore. Every penny of the supposed missing trust funds went directly into Herrera Holdings under fake names." Richard leaned in. He knew how to hide it, but not perfectly. "Look here, same signature, different date stamp." He forgot to change the metadata. Ava rubbed her temples. "So we have proof that he fabricated everything." "Not only that," Carla said, sliding a folder toward her. "We have enough to show he embezzled from his own firm. He used the Riley Foundation as a cover-up and tried to frame you for it." Ava looked at the files, her heart racing. "We can finally end this." Carla nodded. "Maybe, but we need one more piece, a witness inside Herrera and Gates who can verify this paper trail. Otherwise, Ethan's lawyers will bury us in technicalities." Richard nodded. "Someone on the inside." The office door creaked. A timid voice said, "Maybe I can help." They spun around. A young woman stood there, eyes red, trembling, clutching a flash drive. "Who are you?" Carla asked. "My name is Laura Martin. I was Ethan's executive assistant." Her voice cracked. "I can't keep lying for him." Ava rose slowly. "You worked for him when—" Laura nodded. "Since before the divorce. I know everything. The offshore transfers, the fake receipts, even the private detectives he hired to follow you. He said he wanted proof of instability. I thought it was business. I didn't know he was going to hurt you." Richard handed her a bottle of water. "You're doing the right thing now." Laura plugged the flash drive into Carla's laptop. The screen filled with scanned receipts, emails, and recorded calls. One file name made Ava's stomach churn. Phase 4. Carla clicked it. Ethan's voice spilled from the speakers, cold, deliberate. "Make sure she looks hysterical in public. Leak the hospital records, the crying photos. I want a narrative. The unstable heiress. Once I have custody, she can disappear quietly." The room went silent. Ava brought a hand to her mouth. Her eyes glistened, but her voice held steady. "That's enough," Carla whispered. "This will bury him." Richard exhaled, half relief, half fury. "We present everything to the court and the press simultaneously. No more waiting." But before Carla could respond, her phone buzzed. "Unknown number," she answered, and a distorted male voice came through. "Think those files will save her? Try looking out your office window." Carla froze. Richard spun sharply toward the glass. Across the street, a man in a dark jacket stood on a rooftop, the camera lens glinting in the morning sun. Richard slammed the blind shut. "He knows we have the files." Carla grabbed her bag. "We need to move now. The original evidence stays with me. You two go separate routes." Ava's pulse hammered as Richard took her arm and led her down the fire escape. Outside, horns blared, the city vibrating like adrenaline. Richard's car was waiting at the curb. As they sped through traffic, he said, "Once this goes public, there's no turning back." Ava looked out the window, her reflection merging with the skyline. "Good," she she said quietly. I'm not going back. Period. But as they vanished into the chaos of Manhattan, a black SUV trailed them at a constant distance. And inside, Ethan watched their every turn, whispering, "Let them run. The next move is mine." Rain battered the windows of the safe house downtown, as if echoing the chaos outside. Richard's security team had moved Ava, the babies, and Carla there after Laura's flash drive exposed everything. The outside world didn't know the truth yet, but inside that room, it was about to explode. Laura sat at the dining table, shaking, a mug of coffee trembling in her hands. She looked younger without the corporate veneer of Ethan's office. Guilt weighed heavy in her eyes. I should have spoken up sooner, she said quietly. But Ethan had everyone sign NDAs. He threatened to ruin anyone who crossed him. Carla nodded. You're safe now. The police cyber division confirmed the metadata matches Ethan's transfers, but your testimony will make it irrefutable. And yes, Laura's eyes welled up. He recorded everything, even me. He made me set traps for you, Ms. Riley. Remember the fake email from your doctor about postpartum evaluations? That was me. He ordered me to send it. Ava's breath caught. You, why? Laura shook her head, sobbing. Because I needed the money to pay for my brother's medical bills. But then he told me if you broke down publicly, he'd give me a bonus. He wanted photos of you crying. I didn't know it would go this far. Richard crossed his arms, his expression grim but composed. You are doing the right thing now, Laura. And that's what matters. Carla put her laptop on the table. We'll record an official statement tonight, time-stamped and notarized. It will be filed with the court first thing in the morning. Laura wiped her eyes. I have one more thing. She pulled a small envelope from her purse. This came to Ethan's office the day after your car accident. I wasn't supposed to open it, but curiosity got the better of me. It's a receipt. Ritz-Carlton, Midtown, room 1412. Paid by Ethan Herrera 2 hours before your ambulance was hit. Ava froze. The night of the accident. Carla's jaw tightened. That is evidence of premeditation. Richard stepped closer. That is attempted murder. For a moment, the only sound was the storm outside. Ava stared at the receipt, her heartbeat ringing. He tried to kill me? She whispered. Laura nodded. And when he heard you lived, he said, begin phase 3. I didn't know what it meant then. I do now. Carla's phone rang. She looked down and swore. Ethan just filed an injunction, claiming we hacked his servers. He's going on the offensive. Richard's jaw tensed. Let him. Once this hits federal court, his empire crumbles. Laura's voice trembled. He won't stop quietly. He has people. Dangerous people. His head of security, Mario the Hammer. He's not just a guard. He's a former private intelligence operative. Ava rose from her chair, fire replacing fear. Then I stop hiding. Tomorrow, we release everything. Every file, every call, every wire transfer. He wants a war? Good. But he will lose it to the entire world. Richard met her eyes. If we do this, there is no protection left. He will come after you personally. I don't care, Ava said. He's taken everything but my dignity. I won't let him take that too. A flash of lightning crossed the window, cutting her determined face like a blade of light. Carla breathed out. Then tomorrow, we make history. No. Laura looked up. I will testify in court, whatever it takes. Ava walked over, gently squeezing her hand. You are brave, Laura. You broke his spell. That's how monsters die, when the people they control find their voice. But as thunder boomed over the city, no one noticed the black sedan parked across the street, its lights off. Inside, the Hammer watched through binoculars, murmuring into his comms. Target confirmed. Orders remain the same. Eliminate the witness before morning. At dawn, the sky over Manhattan was a sheet of bruised gray. Ava stood in front of the courthouse in a navy dress, her hair pinned up, the slight tremor in her hands hidden inside her coat pockets. This was no longer just a custody hearing. It was war. Ethan Herrera had called in every favor, every lie, every manipulative charm he had left. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with cameras and whispers. Ethan sat at the defense table, polished and smug. Sonia by his side. He gave Ava the same smile he'd worn the day she signed the divorce papers. Confident, cruel, certain she would break again. But she didn't. She took her seat next to Carla and Richard, her back straight, her eyes steady. The judge, a severe woman known for her zero tolerance for theatrics, entered. "Case number 18-462, the bailiff announced. Herrera versus Riley. Custody hearing and counterclaim for fraud." Ethan's lawyer rose first, slick and rehearsed. "Your Honor, my client seeks exclusive custody based on Ms. Riley exhibiting psychological instability and improper financial conduct, both proven by her erratic behavior and the leaked transfers from her trust." Ava clenched her jaw, but remained silent. Carla whispered, "Don't react. Wait for our turn." Then it was Carla's move. She stood, voice firm. "Your Honor, we have evidence proving those very transfers originated with Mr. Herrera himself, designed to frame my client. We also have a recorded confession from his assistant and forensic evidence of data tampering." The room erupted in murmurs. Ethan's smugness wavered. The judge frowned. "Do you have this evidence ready to present?" Carla nodded. "Yes, Your Honor, including the testimony of Ms. Laura Martin, former executive assistant to Mr. Herrera." Ethan's lawyer scoffed. "The same assistant who is under investigation for data theft. A convenient witness." Carla smiled sharply. "Perhaps, but we also have a federal subpoena validating her files and her physical presence here today." The judge nodded. "Proceed." Laura, pale but resolute, took the stand. Her voice trembled only once. "Mr. Herrera ordered me to falsify records and leak Ms. Riley's personal photos to the press. He also paid private contractors to interfere with her medical and financial records." Ethan leaped to his feet. "Lies! She's being paid to say this!" "Sit down, Mr. Herrera," the judge warned. Laura continued, her voice firmer. "He told me, and I quote, 'She's too fragile to survive another scandal. One more push and she'll collapse.'" Gasps filled the room. Ava held back tears, but remained composed. Carla handed the judge a flash drive. "For the record, Your Honor, this contains the original recordings." The judge inserted the drive, hitting play. Ethan's voice boomed through the speakers. "Make her look unfit. I'll take care of the rest." Ethan froze. All cameras turned to him. Sonia's face contorted. Richard leaned in to Ava. "That's it. It's over." But Ethan was not one to surrender. "That's taken out of context," he bellowed. The judge banged her gavel. "Enough, Mr. Herrera." She addressed Ava. "Ms. Riley, your composure throughout this proceeding is eloquent. The court grants temporary full custody pending further investigation." Tears filled Ava's eyes, but she held them back. Carla squeezed her shoulder. As they exited the courtroom, flashes erupted. Reporters shouted questions, but Ava didn't stop. She looked at Richard, whispering, "It's finally over." Richard shook his head gently. "Not yet. People like him don't lose quietly." Just then, Carla's phone vibrated with a new message. Her smile vanished. "It's about Laura. She didn't make it to the safe house after court. Her GPS stopped 2 blocks from here." Ava's blood ran cold. "What do you mean, stopped?" Carla swallowed hard, eyes wide. "Stopped, completely." And across the city, a black sedan idled under a bridge, the rain pounding on its roof. Inside, Laura's phone glowed faintly on the passenger seat. Still recording, the last captured sound was the hammer's voice whispering, "Orders fulfilled." The rain hadn't ceased since the verdict. It fell in slow, relentless sheets over Manhattan, bathing the city in cold silver. For Ava Riley, it wasn't victory that filled her chest. It was grief. Laura Martin, the only woman brave enough to speak the truth, had been found dead in what police called a car accident. Everyone knew it wasn't an accident, but proving it was another story. Ava stood at the window of her downtown penthouse, holding Noah in her arms as the twins slept nearby. Carla's voice on speakerphone was sharp, furious. "The NYPD is calling it a brake failure. No witnesses, no camera angles, just another statistic." "Another one of Ethan's," Ava whispered. "He's silencing anyone who helps me." Richard's voice came on next, quiet but steely. "Then we stop playing defense. We don't just prove he's guilty. We dismantle his legacy." Ava turned, her reflection hardening in the glass. "How?" "By building yours," Richard said. 2 weeks later, the Riley Foundation for Single Mothers launched with quiet grace in a downtown boardroom. The logo was simple. 3 small stars, one for each of her children. The event was not ostentatious. No red carpet, no champagne, just purpose. Ava stood at the podium in a tailored black dress, wearing no jewelry except her mother's silver pendant. "Today," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart, "we are creating something that cannot be bought or broken. Dignity, opportunity, security for women who have been silenced." The small crowd burst into applause. Cameras clicked, this time not tabloid cameras, but real journalists, the ones reporting on courage, not scandal. After the event, a reporter approached. "Ms. Riley, your ex-husband refused to comment on the ongoing investigation. Do you have anything to say to him?" Ava smiled slightly. "Yes, thank you for teaching me how much strength silence can hide." The next day, the headlines shifted. Ava Riley turns pain into power, from victim to visionary. Ethan's PR empire began to crack. Investors pulled out of Herrera Holdings. Clients canceled contracts. His mistress, Sonia, was photographed leaving his penthouse with suitcases. But Ethan didn't crumble quietly. He appeared live on a business news channel that night. His voice was measured, his mask impeccable. "This is a witch hunt," he said. "My ex-wife is manipulating a tragedy to gain fame." Richard watched from his office, jaw tight. He's using sympathy as a weapon again. Ava, sitting nearby, didn't flinch. "Then we use the truth as ours." She opened a folder marked Project Reclamation, a collaboration between her foundation and Salas's firm. Together, they were reclaiming properties Ethan had fraudulently linked to his firm. Every asset returned under the Riley name was another nail in his coffin. In a month, the impact of her foundation rippled through the city. Billboards read, "Dignity is not negotiable. The Riley Foundation." Donations poured in from women who saw themselves reflected in her story. Even the district attorney took notice, reopening Ethan's financial fraud case under public pressure. Still, late at night, when the lights were out and the babies slept, Ava felt the ache of Laura's absence. She lit a candle by the window and whispered, "You didn't die for nothing." One night, Richard stopped by with takeout and news. "The DA is freezing his accounts. They're raiding Herrera Holdings tomorrow." Ava looked into his eyes. "Tomorrow?" "Yes. You need to stay out of sight. Once he knows you're behind this, he might try something desperate." Ava nodded slowly. "Let him try. I've lived desperate before." She turned to the window as Manhattan twinkled in the rain. Her reflection overlapped the skyline. For the first time, her life was not defined by fear. It was defined by purpose. But somewhere in the shadows, Ethan watched the breaking news with a glass of whiskey and a plan in motion. "If she wants to destroy my name," he muttered, "I'll burn hers down with mine." For the first time in years, Ava Riley woke up without fear. Morning sun poured into her kitchen like gold. The smell of coffee, the sound of giggles from the nursery. Life felt real again. Richard Stone sat at the breakfast bar, sleeves rolled up, feeding Leo mashed bananas, while Ava and Noah played on the floor. "You're getting good at that," Ava said, smiling softly as she poured coffee into 2 mugs. He chuckled. "I'm a fast learner. Besides, they like me better than you now." She laughed, a sound that had become rarer, but brighter. "Only because you don't make them eat vegetables." It was ordinary, simple, beautiful. The kind of peace that once felt impossible. Outside, Manhattan was still wild and ruthless. But in this small apartment, everything slowed down. Richard looked up. "The foundation's numbers came in this morning," he said. "You hit the first million in donations." Ava blinked. "Already?" "Already," he said, smiling. "It seems the world loves you, Ms. Riley." She shook her head, emotion tightening her throat. "They don't love me, Richard. They love the story. They love survival." He tilted his head. "And you are survival." For a moment their eyes held. 2 souls forged by loss, now orbiting the same light. Ava looked away, her heart fluttering. "You should eat before that gets cold." He smiled, but he didn't move. "You still don't see it, do you?" "See what?" she asked quietly. "That you've already won. You're no longer just surviving. You're living." His words settled over her like warmth, but before she could answer, Carla burst through the door, phone in hand. "The DA just raided Herrera Holdings. It's on every channel." Ava's pulse spiked. "Already?" Carla nodded. "They found everything. Offshore accounts, fraudulent shell companies, even proof that he bribed auditors. Ethan's empire is crumbling." Richard exhaled, relief mixed with caution. "He'll lash out before he falls. Stay inside today. Security is doubling shifts." Ava nodded, hugging Carla. "Thank you for everything." Carla smirked. "Don't thank me yet. I like my victories with champagne." When Carla left, the apartment was quiet again. Ava sat down next to Richard, watching the sunlight dance on his face. "When this is over," she said softly, "what happens then?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Then you finally get to choose a life, not one built by fear or survival, but by peace, whatever that means for you." Her chest tightened. "And you?" "I'll still be here," he said, "if you want me to be." Silence filled the space between them, heavy and tender. Then a cry from the nursery broke the moment. Ava stood, smiling through her tears. "Sounds like someone's awake." She disappeared into the nursery, lifting Noah into her arms. The baby giggled, tugging her hair. "You're safe now," she whispered. "All of us are." That night, they all had dinner together. Richard, Ava, and the triplets. No business talk, no court filings, no ghosts. Just laughter, pasta, and candlelight. Richard told stories about his late wife, about grief, about how healing doesn't erase the pain, but transforms it. Ava listened, feeling something shift inside her. A fragile, brilliant peace. As the evening deepened, she found herself standing on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. Richard joined her silently, offering her a glass of wine. "To what?" she asked, clinking her glass against his. "To second chances," he said. She smiled. Bright, and to finally feeling safe. For a moment there was nothing but the hum of Manhattan below, and the beat of something new between them. But across the city, inside a penthouse filled with empty bottles and shattered pride, Ethan Herrera looked at her photo on a gossip site and whispered, "Enjoy your safety, Ava, because peace doesn't last forever." By late fall, the air in New York carried the kind of chill that made the city feel sharper, cleaner, like the truth finally cutting through years of lies. News of Ethan Herrera's downfall dominated every headline. Herrera Holdings, under federal investigation, former CEO facing fraud, embezzlement, and witness tampering charges. Ava stood on her balcony that morning, a mug of coffee in her hand, wrapped in Richard's oversized sweater. She watched as helicopters circled downtown, where federal agents were raiding Ethan's offices. For the first time, the city didn't frighten her. Richard stepped beside her, phone to his ear. "Yes, Alice. Keep the Riley Foundation separate from the fallout. We don't want the headlines to cross." He ended the call and turned to her. "It's official. The Securities Commission froze all his assets. His empire is finished." Ava exhaled, her breath fogging in the cold air. He built everything on lies. It was only a matter of time before it collapsed. Richard nodded. "Time and you." That same morning, Ethan Herrera arrived at his office to find chaos. Agents swarmed the marble lobby, seizing computers and files. His assistant wouldn't meet his eyes. Cameras flashed from the street as reporters shouted questions. "Mr. Herrera, are you aware of the federal indictment? Did you embezzle from your own shareholders?" Ethan forced a smile, sliding into his Mercedes, with the arrogant calm of a man who refused to believe he had lost control. But when his chauffeur didn't move, he snapped, "Go! Drive!" The chauffeur turned. It was the Hammer. The bodyguard's jaw was tight. "We need to talk." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "About what?" "The deal is off," the Hammer said quietly. "Me? You promised me protection, not a prison sentence. The feds came to my apartment last night." Ethan's temper erupted. "You think you're innocent? You followed orders. My orders. That makes you guilty too." The Hammer looked straight ahead. "I recorded everything. If I go down, you go down first." Ethan lunged at him, but the Hammer shoved him back into the seat. "You should have paid me what you owed me, boss." He opened the door and disappeared into the street, leaving Ethan furious and alone. Back at her apartment, Ava took Carla's call. "It's happening. Ethan is facing 37 counts. They're freezing his accounts globally. He's going to lose everything." Ava sat silently, her children playing on the rug nearby, with everything but his conscience. "Assuming he still has one," she murmured. Carla said dryly, "See you at the press conference tomorrow. The DA wants you there." That night, Ethan stumbled into his penthouse. Dark, empty, silent. Sonia was gone. His phone rang. The caller ID read, "Richard Stone." He hesitated. Then he answered. Richard's voice was calm, almost compassionate. "You should turn yourself in, Ethan." "It's over." Ethan laughed bitterly. "You always wanted her. Don't pretend this was about justice." "This was never about her," Richard said. "It was about who you chose to become." Ethan's eyes burned with rage. "You think you've won? She'll never be clean again. The world forgets fast, Richard. And when they get bored of her redemption story, she'll be the villain again. You'll see." The line went dead. Ethan hurled his phone across the room. An hour later, the lights in his penthouse flickered as he poured himself one last drink. The city stretched out before him like a brilliant lie. He walked to the balcony, the wind cutting his face. Cameras below caught the image, the fallen billionaire staring at the skyline that once adored him. Meanwhile, in Ava's apartment, Richard turned on the television. The breaking news banner flashed. Ethan Herrera resigns as CEO, amid scandal, facing criminal charges. Ava closed her eyes, whispering, "Justice doesn't need revenge. It just needs the truth." She turned to her sleeping children in their cribs and tucked them in. But across the city, as Ethan pushed away from his balcony railing, his last words drifted into the night. "If I'm going to fall, I'll take her story with me." And somewhere, deep in the darkness, a spark of danger still flickered. The morning of the press conference, Manhattan vibrated with tension. Reporters gathered outside the courthouse, their cameras focused on the podium flanked by flags. The headlines had already declared the storm. Ethan Herrera, indicted on 37 counts of fraud and conspiracy. But the one everyone truly waited for was Ava Riley, the woman who had brought the empire to its knees. Inside the courthouse lobby, Ava adjusted her black blazer, her hands shaking slightly. Richard put a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't owe them a show," he said quietly. "You just owe them the truth." Carla, shuffling her legal notes, added, "And remember, this isn't just about Ethan. It's about every woman who's been silenced by men like him." Ava met her reflection in the glass door. Not the scared wife from months ago, but a survivor. A mother. A name no longer tainted. "Then let's end this," she said. The doors opened. Flashes erupted like lightning. The crowd surged forward. Ava walked to the podium, Richard and Carla behind her. The hum of murmurs faded as she faced the sea of lenses. "Good morning," she began. "For over a year, my life has been torn apart by lies. Not just personal ones, but corporate ones. Today, justice begins to rebuild what deception destroyed." She held up a folder labeled Riley Foundation Records. "Every penny of my mother's trust has been accounted for. Every accusation against me was fabricated by Ethan Herrera, who used fear as a tool and money as a weapon." A reporter shouted, "Ms. Riley, do you have proof?" "Yes," she said, her voice unshakable. "You will find all the documents publicly uploaded as of this morning. Transparency is no longer optional for me. It is survival." The crowd buzzed. Carla nodded approval. Richard watched her, pride softening his features. Ava continued, "But this is not just my story. It is about anyone who has been told they are too emotional, too fragile, too small to stand up for themselves. The dignity does not come from perfection. It comes from persistence." The applause that followed was not polite. It was thunderous. Moments later, the DA stepped forward to confirm the charges. Ethan Herrera had been formally indicted and would face trial in a month. But just as Ava began to step away from the podium, chaos erupted. A man in a dark coat broke through the barricade, shouting her name. Security instantly moved, tackling him. Reporters screamed, cameras flashing. Ava froze, her heart hammering. Carla shielded her, but Richard grabbed her arm, pulling her back toward the courthouse steps. "Who was that?" Ava gasped. A security officer radioed, "We have him. ID says Mario the Hammer Carter, former private security for Herrera Holdings." Ava's blood ran cold. The Hammer. Richard's expression darkened. Ethan's enforcer. Inside the police van, the Hammer struggled against the handcuffs, yelling, "It's not over. The story's not over either." Ava stared as the van doors slammed shut, sirens wailing in the distance. The press surged again, shouting questions. But Richard guided her away. Back inside, Carla exhaled tremulously. That could have ended very badly, very quickly. Ava leaned against the marble wall, her breathing ragged. "He's trying to scare me, even from the shadows. He wants control." Richard looked her directly in the eyes. "Then take back all of it. You've spoken the truth. Now, live it. Let him rot with his lies." Later that night, the conference footage aired on all major networks. The image of Ava standing firm against the flashing chaos became iconic. Tweets flooded social media. Truth has a face. In her apartment that night, Ava hugged her children as they drifted off to sleep. For the first time in years, she felt peace. The city noise outside sounded like applause, but somewhere, in a darkened jail cell, Ethan Herrera smirked at the news report. "She thinks it's over," he muttered. "But the story ends when I say it does." And beneath the table, a guard slid him a phone, glowing with an unread message. Deep winter returned to New York, with soft snow instead of storms. The trial had concluded. Ethan Herrera was convicted on all counts, and for the first time in 2 years, the world stopped whispering Ava Riley's name with pity. They spoke it now with respect. The woman who resurfaced. On a cold December morning, sunlight poured over the Brooklyn Bridge. Inside a ballroom of an elegant hotel by the river, Warm light glowed on white roses and crystal chandeliers. The scent of vanilla and cedar filled the air. Guests spoke in hushed tones, waiting for the bride. Carla adjusted her dress in the dressing room, smiling. You realize the entire country is watching this wedding, right? CNN, Vogue, everyone. Ava laughed softly. I'm not getting married for the headlines. I'm getting married for peace. Her reflection in the mirror was calm, her hair simply pinned up, the satin dress timeless. Around her neck hung her mother's pendant, the one engraved with courage. This is for her, she whispered. Outside, Richard Stone stood at the altar, overlooking the East River. He looked different now, lighter, freer. The gray in his eyes was no longer pain. It was anchoring. Beside him, Mr. Edward Salas smiled quietly. The man who had once been the gatekeeper of Ava's past was now a witness to her future. When the music began, the doors opened. Ava walked in. The entire room rose to its feet. Her steps were steady, deliberate, as if she were walking not just toward love, but toward redemption itself. When she reached Richard, he whispered, "You look like peace." She smiled. "And you look like everything that comes after." The officiant spoke softly over the quiet of the river outside. "You have both weathered storms that most could never endure. Today you don't promise perfection, you promise presence." Ava squeezed Richard's hand. "Presence is all I ever wanted." They exchanged handwritten vows, signed with the very same Mont Blanc pen that once sealed her divorce papers, a symbol of endings reborn as beginnings. "I don't promise to shield you from pain," Richard said, "but I promise to stand by you when it comes." "And I don't promise a perfect love," Ava replied, "only an honest one, built from scars, not illusions." When the officiant declared, "You may kiss," the crowd erupted in applause. Flashes flared, but this time, Ava didn't flinch. She leaned in and kissed Richard softly. The world blurred around them. Carla wiped her eyes. "Damn it, I swore I wouldn't cry." Salas chuckled. "That's what happens when justice turns romantic." Outside, snow began to fall. The timing was almost cinematic. As they walked out onto the open patio, reporters shouted questions. "Ms. Riley, what's next?" Ava looked up at the sky. "What's next?" She smiled. "Life. Finally. Just life." Richard circled her with his arm as photographers captured the moment. "You know," he said quietly, "your story will be taught in business ethics classes someday." Ava laughed. "I hope they skip the crying parts." "No," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "That's the part that made everyone believe." Later that night, at the reception, she held her triplets as they danced under the soft glow of the fairy lights. Ava tugged her veil. Leo tried to grab the microphone. Guests laughed and the music swelled. When the night ended, Ava stood alone for a moment, looking at the Manhattan skyline reflected in the river. The same skyline that had once watched her fall apart. She whispered to herself, "I made it home." But as she turned to go back inside, a waiter collecting glasses handed her a folded note with no sender name. Inside, in block letters, it read, "He didn't do it alone." The paper trembled in her hand as the snow kept falling. Snow blanketed the city like a clean slate. 2 months had passed since the wedding, and Manhattan finally felt gentle again. At home, Ava Riley, now Ava Stone, watched her 3 children chase each other around the living room, while Richard hung their wedding photo on the wall. The late afternoon golden light reflected off the frame, capturing the soft smiles frozen in time. "Perfect," Richard said, stepping back. "It feels like home now." Ava smiled, curled on the sofa with a mug of tea. "It finally does." The triplets shrieked when Ava tripped over a toy truck, and Ava rushed over, laughter filling the air. The sound no longer carried tension. It carried peace. The woman who once signed her name in tears was now signing preschool permission slips. The skyline beyond her window was no longer a reminder of pain. It was a view of survival. Carla came over that afternoon with a box of documents. "Guess what?" she said, putting it on the table. "The foundation just got federal status. You're an official nonprofit organization across the U.S. now." Ava smiled. "From court trauma to corporate filing. That's poetic." Carla winked. "You did this, Ava. No headlines, no scandals. Just work, compassion, and guts." Richard poured coffee for the three of them. "And let's not forget, she single-handedly turned her story into a movement. Dignity is Power has raised millions." Ava rolled her eyes. "I didn't start a movement. I just stopped apologizing." They laughed. The conversation drifted to holiday plans, donations, and the trip they would take to the California coast in the spring. For once, life was ordinary, and that made it extraordinary. But when Carla left, and the children were asleep, Ava found herself standing by the window, looking at the skyline again. That note from the wedding was still on her bedside table. He didn't do it alone. She hadn't told Richard. She wanted peace, not paranoia. But every few nights, that single sentence whispered through her thoughts. "Thinking again?" Richard asked quietly, coming up behind her. She turned and smiled. "Just remembering." He circled her with his arms. "You can remember and still move forward." "I know," she said quietly. "But part of me wonders if Ethan really acted alone. He was smart, but not that smart." Richard kissed the top of her head. "If there's anything more to uncover, it will come to light. But don't let the ghosts steal your present." She nodded, exhaling slowly. "You're right, the present matters." The next morning, Ava met Mr. Edward Salas at his office for the final estate paperwork. Papers lined his desk, neat and precise. "Everything looks good," he said, adjusting his glasses. "Except for one small detail. An anonymous deposit to the trust fund 6 years ago. No signature, no trace. But it doubled the assets." Ava frowned. "Anonymous?" "Yes," Salas said thoughtfully. "Whoever it was, they wanted to keep you safe before all this began." She smiled faintly. "Maybe some angels wear suits." By dusk, the house glowed with laughter and warmth. Richard was reading to the children by the fire. Ava folded blankets nearby. The outside world was cold, but inside, life was soft again. As the fireplace crackled, she opened her journal and wrote, "To the woman I was the day I signed those papers. You were broken, but you still walked away. That is courage. You lost everything, and somehow you found yourself. You are home now." She closed the journal and looked at her family, the only ending she ever needed. The camera of life. If this were a movie, it would have pulled back then. Manhattan glittering like a constellation. Snow falling slow and endless. The children's giggles echoing softly through the windows. But as the final credits of peace rolled quietly across the skyline, one final image persisted. A man in a gray coat standing across the street. Watching the flickering lights of the house, he smiled slightly and whispered, "Phase 2. Complete." Then he vanished into the snow. There you have it, the end of our story. Quite a journey, right? If you're still here, listening to this very moment, it's because something in Ava's story touched you. Maybe a memory, maybe a quiet strength you forgot you had. Life breaks us in ways we don't always understand. But as Marcus Aurelius wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Every fall, every heartbreak, every betrayal becomes the path that shapes us. Ava's journey wasn't just about revenge or success. It was about reclaiming peace. It was about remembering that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means transforming pain into power. And maybe that's what we all need to hear, that our worst moments can still lead us home. So, my friend, if you're still here, maybe it's time to begin your own comeback story. If Ava's strength reminded you of yours, hit like. Share this story with someone who needs hope tonight. And subscribe, because we're building a place where broken hearts learn how to rise again. Your story isn't over yet. It's just beginning.